Hello, welcome to the Bcamp podcast. I'm Richard Carey, the host, and today we have with us Jay Gopalakrishnan, who is the founder and CEO at Knowi. So, thank you, Jay, for joining us. We're so excited to talk to you today. And maybe let's start out. Can you tell us a little bit about Knowi?
Sure. So Knowi is an end-to-end analytics platform with obviously these days AI enabled within it. It helps our customers go from data to insights and everything in between without having to lift and shift the data and do a whole bunch of nonsense to it, basically.
Awesome. I love it. Fantastic platform if you get a chance to check it out. And okay, that's awesome. And you've been at Knowi for 10 years. Can you talk to us about like how your journey, how you ended up starting Knowi?
Yeah, the entrepreneurship was always something that was there in the back of my mind because to go back a bit, I came to United States from the UK, and part of the reason for the move was this was the place to be, the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, and so on for tech. So when you're doing that kind of move, there was like, okay, I'm gonna at some point I would like to do something or take a crack at it. So that was always in the back of my mind. Work for a bunch of companies as leading engineering teams and product teams along the way, but I never really had the balls to do it, to take the entrepreneurship jump. And then I think I was about 35 or thereabouts. I go, if it's gonna happen now, it's now or never kind of thing. And a
Hmm.
set of things happened around that time with the companies I was working with, and so on, that just helped. That okay, this is I'm going to give this a go. So that's how it started. And then in terms of the problem space itself, you think about what's happening, what the problems I've faced across companies, and there were a bunch of things that we were looking at, me and a few others, and can we do this? And data was one of them. And the data problems, that was the one that you just wake up and go, there's something here, right? And then you build that thesis and go, what does it look like in the next couple of years? What does it look like in 10 years? What does it look like potentially in 15 years? And what you do, is it going to be worth the opportunity cost? And then part of that thinking process also is like, the way companies are built just didn't seem right to me, at least. So it's like, how can you do this a little bit differently? You know that this is going to be a long journey. How do you enjoy that journey and enjoy the people you work with, and not have external pressures, let's call it, that deviates the company from what we're looking to do. So that's how it all started. Long-winded answer, but yeah, that's basically the origin of Knowi.
Yeah, I love that. And so, was it just you, or did you have some co-founders? How did that play out?
Yeah, it was me in the beginning. So it was, I think it took me good about 15 to 18 months of, coding away in the basement and just putting your thinking hat on and getting the first couple of customers and so on. Then about 18 months ago, okay, I think it's got some legs, and now it's time to reach out to folks that I knew and who's going to be the right person to come in and then also raise some investment money as well along the way. I say some investment money because part of the thesis for Noe was like we didn't want to do the VC thing, so right off the bat. But we also knew that we needed to get some money into the bank to help, that first couple of years essentially as well. So,
Hmm.
so that's what we did.
Yeah. Well, I think it takes a lot of courage to start a company, especially on your own. It's like it's such a mind game, in my opinion. But
I think the switch was, I'm sure a lot of people go through this too, but you work at a company, right? You get your regular paycheck, and it's reliable, blah blah blah. Your net worth keeps inching up, going on, and so on, and it gives you a sense of comfort and all of that. And all of a sudden, you go in and do your entrepreneurship. You're taking a jump into the unknown, and you're using up your cash, and it's just scary. Then, especially when you have a family and things like that, right? So that was it was almost like embracing that was the early days was the hardest bit because
Mm-hmm.
there's and it's very easy to it's I can see why it's so easy to give up too because that part's hard and you don't get enough traction and then you wonder if it's if you're doing the right thing and all of that. So
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, initial, when you look at the life of the company, there were a couple of like key points that were challenging along the way, and that the initial period was definitely, you know, top one or two.
What kept you going through that?
Um, I think for better or for worse, I can play the long game, So it's like when things don't go, if something is taking out as long as you, you just let buckle down and just keep plowing away. So it's the analogy I tend to use is like, hey, this is like climbing a mountain. And you climb a mountain and then you reach a certain summit and you feel like, whew, and then you look up and go, oh, bloody hell. It's like, I can't even see the top, right? And then you just keep one foot after the other. And then the important thing is during that time, you just got to make sure that you have, gas in the tank. You're excited about what you're working on.
Mm-hmm.
There's, money aspects for everyone in the company and so on as well. So.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Very cool. So let's change gears a little bit. I'd like to hear. Noah's doing some cool stuff with AI. I'd like to hear from you. Like, what do you see are some of the biggest challenges that you're thinking about? Whether it's an AI or just like in general, how are you thinking about those?
Yeah, the way we look at AI is it's a enabler for our customers and our customer experience. So everyone talks about AI and so on, but it's like it's very cool, but how do you change the customer experience using AI?
Mm-hmm.
So that's always been our thing. And then it helps accelerate some of, especially our long-term like initiatives into the mix as well. So for an example would be the you we worked on this ask questions on the data piece of piece of the product for some time, right? So when you ask a question, how do you get the right answers back to the user, and then also give you confidence that we've done the right thing?
Mm-hmm.
What the AI enablement does is now it can give you a higher accuracy for questions you ask. You can ask more complex questions and then get you the results back, and then we still massage it to show you what we've done to get you the answers back. The AI also helps us with other things that we wanted to do in the future, but it's like basically condensed it in some ways. And one of those is like when you look at the enterprise data, you have your structured and semi-structured data in the enterprise. Then you have your documents and your unstructured stuff with web pages and things like that. How do you, and that's also data, right? Ultimately, and
Mm-hmm.
then how do you bring it all together where you can, you know, get things delivered to you of things you care about and your team cares about, as well as being able to do ad hoc stuff. And how do you then build data products to your end customers? And it just accelerates a couple of those things. So with the stuff we just recently launched, we help you get documents into the mix. So you have data in your databases, you have data in documents. How do you combine the two things together? And you ask a question, how it goes across those two separate silos, if you can call it that way, and then get you the answers that you're looking for. And then it's also being able to do that same thing from Slack or from other things to help make that easier. And then in the future, where we expect things to play out, and this is something we are actively, doing work in as well, is almost like when you have when you look at traditional BI systems, it's like basically, hey, gives you some answers, gives you some insights,
Mm-hmm.
and but can the AI engine also take some actions on your behalf? So if you're
Mm-hmm.
tracking your ad spend across your groups, and if you're a big media agency, for example, and all of a sudden your conversions are gone through has dropped a lot for a specific ad group, and if it detects that anomalous pattern, but they also give the AI the capability to go in and fix it and just either turn off the campaign or just change up the campaign spend, and let it make those determinations if you give it rights to, And then you get that end-to-end workflow, right? That helps the business. So those are the agent workflows and things like that. It's you know, and then in some ways, Knowi can also become its own agent for anything data related that we can plug and play into the company system. So
Hmm.
those are some of the things, you know, that.
Yeah, this is fascinating to me. I have so many questions about this. So one of the things that I've noticed sometimes with data is that one of the biggest hurdles is it's like you can build these great data solutions, but then actually getting people to use it to influence their decisions.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about how does it improve the customer experience. Have you noticed any change there? Do people is it easier for people to interact with something that's in more of a natural language? Or what are your thoughts
Yeah.
around that?
Yeah, it's getting there, I would say. It's still the, old habits die hard kind of thing, and then you kind
Hmm.
of have to get used to some workflows. What we found is like instead of asking users to go proactively do something, is that you if you push it in front of them,
Hmm.
and then it just gets, one of the, like, our sales team gets their daily stuff into their Slack channel, right? And similar thing for success. So then everybody in the team is accountable to what, the numbers that they're accountable to, and they know what's going on. Instead of ask, well, you need to go to Knowi and then just look at this dashboard and just make sure that this, doing this and that. So,
Hmm.
so just something simple like that, it actually makes everybody gets everybody on the same page. And then from there, the technology enablement piece would be, hey, I have a more detailed question I need to ask before I get into this meeting. So what are the next steps for XYZ, right? And just ask that in Slack, and then it goes into
Hmm.
Knowi and gets you the answers back. So those sort of things, it's there. It's also then people can use it, and sometimes people don't know that they can use it. So there's
Yeah.
some education stuff, not education, but somehow to make that whole process easier would be would be good.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that vision. And it feels like this will make data much more accessible to people when you can just ask a question in Slack and get an answer. That's hopefully accurate.
Yeah,
um,
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
I love that. So, what would you, what advice would you give to a software developer or an engineer? Like, say you're looking to hire someone onto your team to help build out some of these AI solutions. Uh, what do you look for? And like, what advice would you give to somebody who's looking for a role like that?
If you're looking for a software engineer, there are a couple of key things that are must-haves, and it's not about the degree you have and stuff like that. That's just, it's footnotes for us.
Hmm.
And within the education side, if it's something engineering, something computer science, yeah, sure. At least it just it gives it a little ribbon. But it's really about, when you're an engineer, what do you spend most of the time doing? You're troubleshooting stuff, right? And so, how good are your troubleshooting skills? How good are you able to take a problem and then just like you're a little bit like a Rottweiler to go and find the root cause of that problem, right? And then fix it. And then how good are you in terms of designing a system? And architecturally, how do you put everything together? And that piece, we usually put them through the paces, and you take a real use case.
Hmm.
Could be something in the AI space, could be something in you know something generic like hey, build a URL shortener service, right?
Hmm.
And then just like something as simple as that, and then get them to see how they think through that. How do they scale? How do they get to, if you have millions of things coming in at one time, how does the operation side of things look like? How does caching look like, and so on. So that is usually a combination of experience and expertise
Hmm.
plus your like design skills. So you marry those things together, and then you look for, hey, is this someone we enjoy working with? And because that's important too, right? Especially
Hmm.
guys have been with us for a long time and stuff. So those would be the main things. So it's like curiosity, humility, those sort of things goes a long way in terms of personal makeup.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. So in terms of advice, I guess it's get good at building stuff.
Yeah, and the thing
Practice,
is
go
that
build stuff, and then
yeah, and it's so. I mean, I don't want to say it's so easy to build stuff. I mean, people think it's people are intimidated by tech,
hmm
but once you just get the basics, just even like the GPTs of the world and the perplexities of the world, and it takes you so far along in terms of things you can do with it, and then learn. And if there is an opportunity to solve some real problems, so how I got my start in software, I wanted to be a Formula One driver, which is never going to happen, lack of talent and other things. But but then my degree was in mechanical engineering, and I used to work at this. I used to work night shifts back in England, this cash counting company. So just go in and count money all night. Say, oh, this looks about right, and then plug it in and so on. And then there's some opportunity came up where there's some IT stuff going, and I was like, I think I may be able to do that, and then just put something together and use macros and Excel or something. I was 17 or something at the time, and then it was just like, this is actually kind of fun, and this is more fun than going to the design room and trying to cobble together pieces together on my mechanical engineering stuff. And
mm,
so and then it just, started there, but it just that curiosity and like, I enjoy doing this. And then just like, if you find somewhere that can help you do that too, and you find what you really enjoy, then that helps, I think. So
yeah, I love that. I heard someone say if you're doing something that you don't enjoy, there's enough options these days that you're probably not doing the thing that you could enjoy the most. So I like that
yeah,
advice of just experiment, play around, and do what you like.
exactly. It's like in many, the from a company philosophy standpoint, right? It's like, hey, work ultimately in a big picture standpoint, it's a good, what, 25%, third of your life,
hmm
right? So why bother doing something that you're trading time for money,
hmm
but instead do something that you actually genuinely enjoy, and then have relationships you build along the way that lasts. And oftentimes it's treated as like a business transaction, right? So and it can be more than that. I mean, obviously money is important, don't get me wrong, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Maybe talk a little bit about the culture at Knowi. What kind of culture have you tried to establish within the company?
Yeah, so we've been profitable for some time, right? A bunch of years now. So one of the key things for us was we wanted to keep the company. It's a little counterintuitive, but we wanted to keep the company as small as possible, as long as possible, and just build it organically. So, so it's an engineering focused crowd that usually find us, and then they evangelize on our behalf inside the company, and we go up against the big boys, right?
hmm
And the reason for that small company mentality is like because you can be so much more nimbler if you have a small group of people that know what they're doing, and then just like we put out releases every 1 to 2 weeks, right? And the tempo is like relentless, but we enjoy what we do. We enjoy who we work with. So so it makes it kind of like we kind of jazzed up in some ways. Um, um, and then we try to keep politics and stuff to a minimum as well. So and part of what that helps us is like it gives us a very long term horizon,
hmm
and you're not looking to get sold, right? And then you basically just like trying to build. It's never been the objective to go like raise a ton of money and play in that, get the valuation to be billion plus, and then
hmm
do that whole thing. So then if you get away from those shackles, then you can just think about this in a, okay, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and chunk it up that way, right? And going back to the mountain thing, say you're going up to the next summit, get enough oxygen to go to the next summit, one step after the other, instead of falling down um, you know, down the ravine, basically. So,
Yeah, I love this. This is honestly so refreshing for me to hear, I think. And what what blew my mind actually in talking to you the first time, Jay, is how much you guys have built with a small team and with relatively, less capital than a lot of these other big players. And you're neck and neck in terms of technology, which is a little mind blowing. I still can't wrap my mind around it 100%, but it's like this idea of just I don't know. I don't know if you have comments about that, but it's just really
well,
refreshing, I
you
think.
know, the way we look at it is like, every 7 people you hire, you need a middle management person in between, right? And the
Hmm.
and the reason we try to keep it small is like we want to not do that because then it slows things down, and then it's like it's a design by committee and blah, and it's an endless
Hmm.
blah blah blah, right? And then it almost um, you can double the size of the team and then have the velocity of like deployments and stuff almost go down
Hmm.
by a fair degree, but just because of that friction, right? So it's almost like that smallness is in some ways our superpower, and then we just try to keep it as small as possible, instead of trying to grow as quickly as possible with a headcount, which is what we normally hear, right? So yeah, so it's just different, you know. And
Yeah.
there's a that the whole raise a ton of money, grow as quickly as possible. I mean, there's still a that's still valid in
Yeah.
certain industries, and if you're trying to build a rocket, right, and or
Hmm.
build robots and stuff, it's going to be a capital intensive business.
Hmm.
Um, but I think a lot of companies don't need it, and I say even majority, but they are always chasing it, And
Hmm.
even, in the company, there's always pressure from people to say, why aren't you raising more money and you could grow faster and blah, 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 right? And then you're kind of like, okay, holding that back. Say, yeah, just, just be patient.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I think, like you said, in some cases, it very well could be necessary, like especially in markets where it's like winner take all, and it's like the first person to the finish line wins everything,
Yeah,
then you sort of have to just go go all out. Um,
yeah,
but in a market where different companies can use different solutions and it's not necessarily winner take all, then
yeah.
seems like you can navigate it.
Yeah, exactly. And then it just helps you, I think, when things come up, just adjust accordingly,
Hmm.
uh, faster, you know. So I can't say our overall vision has changed all that much from even the inception. So but when things, the AI stuff is heating up, I go, all right, this helps us accelerate some of these things that we want to do.
Hmm.
How can we do that, right? And customers ready for something like that too. So.
Yeah. Wow, I love that. I have more questions, but just for the sake of, maybe not everyone is interested in organizational dynamics. Um, but later maybe I'll ask you. So my next question is about your own education. Again, I'd be interested to hear you mentioned already, like just when you were 17, just experimenting and building some stuff. I'd love to hear about other good or bad experiences from your own education.
Um, my own education. I had somewhat of a non-traditional education background just because, I was born in India. My dad used to move around, so we moved with him every year to different places. So yeah, different places, different cultures, different, so you're kind of forced to adapt and adjust. And
Hmm.
then I ended up in the UK, right? So, and I think the engineering degree, for example, that was useful in putting together your the being able to solve complex things, right? The math side of things, physics side of things, logic, and so on, and that give you and communication, written communication, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives you a decent, I think, foundation. So I said earlier that the degree may not be as important, but it still gives you some foundational skills, right, that you can take for things you end up having more interest in, that you want
Mm-hmm.
to, you know, drive into your life. But the you know it's almost that things happen, key inflection points in your life, career wise, happen almost by accident, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's like that, you know, getting into the software side of things when I was 17. If I didn't do that, maybe I would never been in software, right? It could have been a totally different career. And then being coming down to the US and doing the early gigs back in 2000, Nasdaq was at an all-time high at the point, and then developing those experiences. And would the company ever happen if it didn't happen? Probably not, right? So it's kind of like the stacking of these experiences that you have, and also your mind map of like what you want to do and stuff, and putting it all together, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. So, question, if things were different, you didn't need like a degree, because you kind of need a degree basically in the economy today. But do you think you would have been better off just building stuff, or do you think having that formal foundation with the theory and everything uh, was necessary or beneficial for you?
I would say do both if you can,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah, why
So
choose?
yeah, and so it's basically um, and then it's um, so then you get that that degree, if as almost like a backup thing, and it's almost like expected these days, right? Unless
Hmm.
you're dropping out of Stanford or something, and then as you mark that as a badge of honor. But if you do both, then if things doesn't go to plan, then it's always something in your back pocket to fall back to, potentially.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, and I think just also being, I think if you're deep into it while you're doing your degree and stuff, you'll know where your heart's at. Um, you know, like the tail end of your degree too, I would say.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. I don't know if I've thought about it as like a hedge against career risk. Makes a lot of sense though.
Yeah, and then it's also part of like, is like, what do you think the future is, right? My
Hmm.
son, he just started university, and as he was evaluating his options and what he wanted to do and so on. So it's just having these frank discussions on what he finds interesting, and then how do you find that into like, hey, what does the future hold, right? In terms of future, the near term and long term, you got software, you got AI, you got things like robots and robotics, right?
Hmm.
So is that an area that's of interest, right? So you can put your technical skills together with things that will change driverless cars and robots that can clean up your houses and things like, and many other things like that.
Hmm.
So do you want to be at the forefront of that, or do you want to do something else service oriented? So it's about what brings you joy in some ways, and um, and going at it, and just with full
Yeah,
vigor, I guess it was.
yeah, yeah. I love that. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jay, for joining us. Do you have any final thoughts or questions before we wrap up? Otherwise, we can bid adieu.
Yeah, no, this is good to chat with you, Richard.